Hey everybody, it's your friend Dave Cameo, host of Squawking Dead, here with another episode of House of the Dragon, the 6th episode of its 2nd season titled not Dragon Seeds, but Smallfolk. Again, this contains both our post-watch live stream reaction, our feelings over facts discussion, combined with our full episode breakdown analysis, our facts over feelings discussion. I'm recording this voiceover just after watching the 7th episode of House of the Dragon, it so happens, and we did not do a post-watch reaction live stream. Unfortunately, we've had an unprecedented lack of participation during our live streams when we've done this. I say unprecedented because when we're covering The Walking Dead, Fear the Walking Dead universe television shows, even Better Call Saul. In fact, I think we had more participation for Better Call Saul than even our post-watch live streams of The Walking Dead when we were taking over for Talking Dead when it was not on. We've just never had this little participation in the live stream, and so what we decided to do was to cut our losses and just record our full episode breakdowns. That being said, if you have been enjoying our feelings over facts post-watch live stream reactions, we could certainly use your input, because we want to give you what you want, because this is really all about you. Those live streams are all about you, really and technically. We wanted to make it about highlighting the things that you've noticed or that blew your mind after every episode. We didn't really want to make it more about us. You're going to hear a lot about what we think in the full episode breakdown. So let us know by heading over to ratethispodcast.com/squawkingdead. Leave us a rating, a review, leave your social media handle so we can tag you on social media when we do post your review, good or bad. Trust me, we will post it. Or just DM us on social media. Our DMs are open. And if you happen to be listening to this on Spotify, you can leave a comment. It is a new feature that they modified from their former Q&A section, as well as if you happen to catch this on YouTube Music as an audio podcast or on our YouTube channel, you can head on over to the comment section, let us know, and we'll keep doing it. We haven't watched the season finale yet, so we can try to react to that. We just need to know what you think. In any case, here is the episode combined for your enjoyment, and I'll see you in the middle and the end. We are Squawking Dead, a podcast pulverizing episodes beyond the Walking Dead universe. Sometimes we give you news, sometimes we make you laugh, but most times we go deep, but not really today, because today we're here to react to House of the Dragon's 6th episode, our little post-watch live stream reaction to this episode. I haven't done this in a while, so even though we've done, this is the 6th one, so we've done 5 of these live streams, and I haven't mentioned that, yes, you can tip us on stream, and your tip will show up in this episode, in this little chat window, and we will thank you for it live on air if you head over to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/squawkingdead. I'm going to speak for everybody here on our hosts panel when I say we love this show. We love reacting to this show. This is a feelings over facts live stream. We mostly want to know what you think. So why don't you head over to our YouTube channel, interact with us in the chat, and let us know what you thought of this episode. What blew your mind? And there were quite a few things, I think, even though, well, let's go around the room. Let's start with Sharondy. And I want to know what you thought of this episode.
I thought it was a good setup because things are going to be coming up soon. I really enjoyed the close-ups of Sea Smoke. That is a really beautiful dragon. His milky white and his eyes and everything. He is a really pretty dragon.
When you think of a dragon on the Game of Thrones universe, I actually think of Sea Smoke. His horns are all wavy. If it's
and he's just so pretty. I mean, he's just, Sea Smoke is a he, I think. I just thought he was beautiful to look at.
He's got a subtle beauty to him.
I'm really over the Daemon dreams, but on the plus side, we did get to see Viserys again.
Yeah!
And I always loved that because that was great. Yeah, I really enjoyed seeing Viserys. And it's just like seeing Rhaenyra last week. Yes, we have to put up with these dumb dreams, but we still get to see young Rhaenyra again, and we get to see Viserys again. So I'm okay with that.
I love this. And doing the review, because again, I want to mention that we do have an editor, and we could use your support to help pay for that editor. But as I was reviewing the last episode that we did, the breakdown for last week's 2X05 Regent, could not get enough of you guys talking about, oh, I wish these dreams, they've got to end. I felt like in this episode, we got a little bit more resolution to these dreams. It was almost like a cognitive behavioral therapy session where he had to go through all his stuff. And so maybe I wasn't wrong. Maybe he needs to go through something to make it to the other side and find an anchor to support Rhaenyra. Finally, heavy is the crown is a weight. It's not
it's a burden, not a privilege.
And think of what Rhaenyra is going through right now. And then he gets to see Viserys and be there for him like he wasn't there for him before. I got a little, I don't know, did you guys get a little emotional?
I got a little emotional there, yeah, because number one, I cannot remember the actor's name, and I hate it that I can't. Paddy, I just love seeing him again. That was fantastic. And I feel like what is going on with Daemon is he's having to relive moments with the people whose love he wanted the most. Rhaenyra, his mother, Viserys. And he hasn't been able to make it up to Rhaenyra yet. Cut her head off when he saw her in the dream. And
he's driven.
He can't make it up to his mother because she's dead. But in this one, he managed to make it up to Viserys in his dream. And I feel like he was crying at the end of it.
After the dream. Isn't that sometimes when you dream about something so incredibly emotional, I've woken up crying and it's upset me so hard. Speaking of, when she slaps, what's his name?
Celtigar. Bartimus Celtigar.
Bartimus, that was the B, right? So how did you guys feel about that?
I was like, yeah.
As satisfying as that was, did you also feel like,
Well, see, the thing is, she had to put her foot down, man. They have not been listening to her. I could see it coming because he was just talking, mansplaining to her as she was, and you could see her getting more and more and more annoyed. So when she turned around and slapped him, I was like, yeah, shut up. Read the room, buddy.
You know what, though? It was very satisfying. But then you get that, right? See, that Bridget face right now, that immediate afterwards.
I don't agree with it because she said, it's my fault that you do not fear me. And I was like, that's not the kind of ruler you want to be. That's not the kind of ruler you are.
She's trying to be nice, but they're not listening. And so when they're not listening, sometimes you have to make them see. Like she didn't.
Sometimes you gotta make them listen.
I mean, she didn't throw him off the top of a tower or imprison him. She just slapped him a little bit, you know? Wake up, dude.
Much like me, she's still pissed about it hours later. So.
But she does think better of it.
Well, she's like, he's lucky I didn't have his tongue.
Well, she's still mad. Give a girl time to cool down.
She picks up the sword before. She's like, this feels okay.
No. See, when I don't cool down, you guys are like, wow, what a bee. She doesn't cool down and everyone's like, yeah.
I did not. I was with you.
I don't like this at all.
I was with you, Bridget. I'm like,
I don't like this at all.
Satisfying. And then I kind of immediately, listen, I'm going to just say this out loud. For seasons upon seasons of being Daenerys' corner, that last season was a lot.
Well, that last season turned everyone.
I am still traumatized by the snow that wasn't snow falling on King's Landing, and the little girl who was turned into a pillar of ash.
Girl lost her temper. Give her some wine. Give her some good tea. Give her some sleep, and she'll be all right. But no, you gotta go stab her and kill her before you let her cool down a little bit.
No, I want whiskey and to just not be touched.
I'll put it this way. Yes, I'm traumatized by Game of Thrones and Dany going nutsy. Even when Mysaria says it suits you, the sword, and she goes, no, gosh, no, recoil. It's like she was giving her reverse psychology. Right?
When she said that looks good on you, that is not what she was referring to, my dear.
Oh, please enlighten me. Actually me.
The sword looks good on you. What happened later? Come on, put it together.
Okay, all right. Okay, I wanted you to spell it out. I didn't think you were quite referring to that, but then you did, and then, that happened, and I am not mad at it.
That looks good on you. Strap it on, babe.
Ooh, wow. Well, okay, she really went there.
Like a sword.
Yeah, I was just like, let's not mix business and pleasure.
Let's not mix the boys with...
Let's not do that. I think you might live to regret this one. I don't know.
That's kind of where I thought she was going.
I never got the feeling that there was something between them.
No.
Until this episode. And the minute she walked out, when Rhaenyra was standing out on the turret looking at the dragon or whatever, and Mysaria walked out and put her hand down next to hers, I was like, oh man, they're not going to do that. But that is exactly what they did. I saw it coming.
No, you're not mad at it or anything.
No, I don't care. It's like, okay, sure, get yourself some, Rhaenyra. You had an okay baby daddy, right?
Yeah.
Because Harwin Strong was cool. And then you had
Daemon. He
wasn't
wasn't really interested in her, though.
So he was her Kingsguard. Technically, they weren't allowed to be together. She couldn't acknowledge him, and he couldn't acknowledge the children in any way. But he was very loving towards them and very loving towards her.
Oh, yeah. I thought that he played for the other team.
No, that was her actual husband,
that was Rhaenyra.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Was in my mind this episode, too.
Well, because I'm going to tell you, Adam looks a whole lot like the actor that played Rhaenyra.
Ish, yeah.
And as soon as I saw Sea Smoke, I was like, that's who they're going to get to take Rhaenyra's dragon, because he looks just like him and he's got his bloodline. I knew that they were going to do that. I like the whole episode, really.
That's what this live stream is about. It's about reacting. It's about saying, I can't get it out of my head. I really can't get Viserys out of my head. I was really happy to see him, and I'm sure
Paddy Considine, Considine, Considine.
Oh yeah, I never gave you a real reaction to that. I liked it.
But Bridget, I feel like you've missed out on a whole lot of Viserys because you only watched like the first episode and the last episode.
The first episode and the last episode.
You never caught up?
I'm literally trying. Thank you.
I am very, very tired of the Daemon dreams, but I did like that we got more of Alice. And I like that Simon Strong actually said her name so that we know she exists in this world as an actual person. But he did give her such a weird look in the last episode. Maybe she's shape-shifting or something. Or, like I said, maybe she's really old. She's supposed to be like 400 years old. Sir Simon sees her as an old crone or something. And Daemon sees her as this young, beautiful owl tamer. May I also remind you that when little Jaehaerys Targaryen was being carted away on the cart,
the owl shroud,
you could see the owl was on his shroud. So I think it's fitting that Daemon is dealing with the owl lady.
Well, and like I said, it seems maybe as though that the children of the forest do appear differently to different people, or they appear in the manner of which they want to appear to the person.
They're different for everybody.
Oh, right. Because some people will see one thing and then some people will see another thing. Then they talk about
Neville saw Snape, remember? Which one you fear the most, and he saw Snape.
But it's all at once, too. It's like you said, Sir Simon may see one thing and Daemon Targaryen will see another thing. He'll look like, what is this person doing here? Who looks completely different to him. The thought occurred to me that in the last episode, how are you even here if you were just somewhere else a second ago? We were just in this other place with the Tullys. How are you even in this castle? Harrenhal makes me crazy. Anyway, Daemon, what's up? I just got a raven from somewhere.
They're in danger, man. Daemon thinks they're bewitching him and stuff. If Alice isn't careful, she's going to get all of the Strongs wiped out in the castle.
Maybe that's what she wants.
Well, okay, this is the real question I want to ask both of you, because you had made such a stink about this, which I really do not blame you about. Please, may these dreams be over. One, do you think that they might be now, that there's this emotional resolution with Viserys? And were you thankful for it?
God, I hope so.
At least this one went somewhere. It wasn't just wild, crazy, make no sense dreams. This actually went somewhere and led to some kind of catharsis. Do I think Daemon is going to suddenly be a different person? He may change a little bit.
Do you think he might soften a bit?
I think he's not going to be so hasty, because Alice was like, just wait 3 days. The winds will change. And so he waited 3 days and things went his way.
Alice basically killed the old Tully.
Yes, she did.
Maybe he just won't be so, he'll back off just a little.
Maybe. I was curious, do you all think that Simon Strong knew that Alice had, at the very least, allowed the death of this guy? When he says to Daemon, Alice went and she tried to no prevail or whatever, he makes like a face as he walks away. I don't know. It made me think maybe he knew.
He made clear he knows Alice Rivers. So I think he definitely knew that was what she was going to do.
As far as Simon goes, I don't know. I kind of look at his kids and I look at him. Okay, the kids are definitely dullards. The younger Strongs. Sit. And then I look at Sir Simon and I'm thinking he knows enough to be compliant. He may not be as sharp as any of the people that were interested in the show are practically. I think he sees a version of Alice, like you said, Sharon D. He sees a version of Alice that he's familiar with, and it wouldn't enter in his mind that she would do such a thing. It wouldn't even come close. She's always been so helpful, probably, to the house, the Harrenhal, and to the Strongs. She's been now, and maybe he sees an old lady, a helpful old biddy. So the version that we see with Daemon is probably a completely different version than what he sees.
It's a really weird face that he makes afterwards.
You know,
there's something there. Attention. I don't know what it means, but there's something there.
You got me on high alert, baby. Especially, okay, I did not catch that she disappears behind him in the last episode. And then you made me look, and I showed a slowed down version of that, her disappearing behind Sir Simon Strong. Like, what is happening here? I don't even know how you caught that. Mm-hmm. It's so quick and so subtle that it's easily missable. But I even put text. I'm like, then she disappears in a puff of smoke. But she didn't. She just disappeared behind him.
R.I.P. Sir Stefan. That was a brave move. I think he screwed up when he's like, I did it. Like, no, you shouldn't have said that. But
that's the second he said that, I'm like, come on. Damn. And this is what I was saying in the last episode, which did not make the cut, by the way, about Ulf actually getting the dragon and Hugh the Hammer not getting the dragon to be typical Game of Thrones, is that this is typical Game of Thrones. After Stefan Darkland loses a bunch of his Darkland house in the Red Dragon and the Gold, the 4th episode, then his bannermen are dragon fodder at Rook's Rest, and his lord is executed earlier on in that episode. Then he tries to mount this dragon, and then he's completely burned to ash, undoubtedly. It's just sad all around. And I get it. I get Rhaenyra being really upset about that. And he was the guy, by the way, that took her to the Septa, by the way.
He was her King's Guard. He was her Queen's Guard.
You have to look at it from his perspective, though, too, Dave. This was the highest honor that he could have ever received. No one else in the history of what we know of this world has ever been asked to take a dragon that wasn't a Targaryen.
Promised to them, yeah,
you know what
exactly.
I mean? So I think it was worth the 50-50 shot he had, you know what I mean?
I don't think it matters so much with blood, because even Baela has tried to claim a dragon and she almost was killed. And she is pure Targaryen Valarian. So it's not so much the idea that it was Stefan's blood wasn't enough. It's just that he wasn't right for that dragon. And the dragon was like, nah, I'm not interested. Vhagar could have done the same to Aemond when he tried. She could have fried him right there. And he took the chance, and she, I guess,
she said, I see something in you.
She said, I see something. So she allowed him.
So do you think Sea Smoke was like, I'm so tired of you guys. You try to give me these BS people and I don't want them. And he's like, I'm going to go find my own rider. And he just sniffs out a Targaryen.
So I feel like he's been circling them quite a bit, because there was a scene a few episodes ago where Adam was on the beach and he looked up and saw Sea Smoke circling. Mm-hmm. And Sea Smoke's been circling before. Maybe he already knew there was a Targaryen, because technically that's Laenor's half-brother, because it's Corlys's son and Laenor was his son. So,
and Sea Smoke comes back when Adam comes back. So there's like a weird coinciding thing going on.
He already felt the connection with Adam, and so he went and sought him out.
So Adam and Ellen are having the conversation about how the sea serpent they've lived in his shadow their entire lives, and his brother's like, get over it, dude. You're not going to ever get this. And Adam's like, well, essentially you would just have to grow out your hair and everyone would know. Everyone would recognize it, and you would be able to take that birthright and be the heir. And
you can see the little white hairs.
It could change both of our lives. That's why he shaves it, because he's like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Because he's smart and he knows that putting himself out there like that would put him and Adam in danger, because of claims to the Sharon, he says this all the time, claims for the throne, and you even exist.
Well, they even said it in this episode. The people who want the throne are not suited for it. If you don't want the throne, you're probably better suited. And if he put himself out here like, I'm a Targaryen, he would not be considered as made for the throne. They specifically said that in this episode. So I think that's
there's like a Jewish proverb about that, how when you seek honor, it's rarely gotten. But when you do good deeds and allow it to come to you, you can eagerly accept. But I wanted to add something.
What were you going to say, Bridget?
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yes, because I wasn't done with my thought at all.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So what I was trying to say was that
sorry,
that conversation happens, and then Adam's kind of left. Like he says, at least they would know that you are. No one will ever know that I am. This essentially affirms his birthright through this dragon, this happenstance that this dragon hunts him down to be his rider. And this affirms that he has Targaryen blood to some degree. So that's kind of a big deal. I don't know. I just thought that was a really cool tie-in, because they had that conversation earlier. Clearly that was the reason.
Well, it's also be careful what you wish for, buddy, because he might just get it. I wanted to hit on something about sea smoke. Rhaenyra's dragon. Rhaenyra belongs to Driftmark. Sea smoke is sea. He's looking for someone that is suited to replace not a Targaryen, but to replace Rhaenyra, to be the sea and salt that Baela says she is not. She says I'm fire and blood, bitch. And you're sea and salt.
I see her going after the dragon that just appeared in the Vale, which I'm going to guess...
Rhaenyra, you mean, right? Not Baela.
Rhaenyra, yeah.
Right, Rhaenyra, I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm going to guess...
Is that sheep stealer? Because that's all I could think about.
Well, it might be. There's 3 wild dragons. There's Cannibal,
right.
Sheep Stealer, and Grey Ghost.
I want it to be Sheep Stealer.
I'm pretty sure that one's going to be Sheep Stealer. In the books, I think somebody else rides Sheep Stealer, but I don't know if they're going to bring that character in or not. So it may be a moot point. It may be Rhaenyra instead. I'm not sure.
As we've seen, everything is wrong in the books. Not everything, but most things.
Well, because it's a unreliable perspective.
Exactly. He or she who wins the war gets to do the things. Speaking of dragons, do you know how there are signs in front of people's yards about, in this house, we blah, 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 or a flag of this or that?
Mm-hmm.
I walked around my neighbor. Actually, Evelyn told me about this first, and I did not believe what she said. And she said there was a flag in our neighborhood. Well, let me just show you. It is the Blacks Targaryen red on black background flag in my neighborhood.
I support this
the Blacks.
Flag.
Hashtag Team Black.
Yep.
I love
Could
it.
be Team Green, for real.
You know what? I can see it. In this world,
they're just the worst.
All right, let's switch back to the chat, which, by the way, you can join us and tell us your feelings and thoughts at youtube.com/SquawkingDead.
And you can literally say whatever you want, clearly, because we don't care.
But there's some thoughts you should keep to yourself.
There are definitely a whole plethora of things that we did not talk about in this episode, namely which, not only did we do whispers, I don't know if you noticed, but I invoked the name of our lovely brothel madam. And lo and behold, she helps with Diana at the bar with Ulf to spread some of these little things. Like, this fish stew is a little thin. Well, you know, if Rhaenyra was here, she would solve all these problems. And then lo and behold, the package comes in. But I like that it was the brothel madam because I saw a little of that in her interaction with Aemond. The royals.
I'm sure after Aemond just totally ditched her after Aegon was there. Yeah. She's a whore, so she's used to men just walking down on her. But I feel like she had a different relationship with Aemond.
Yeah, occupational hazard.
Maybe that hurt her just a little bit when he just got up and walked out on her like that.
I felt it was very interesting now that we're seeing her more.
Well, with her clothes on and everything,
how much she looks like Alicent. You guys were right. Like, she really does look like Alicent. It was
an older version, sure.
They really tried to find an actress that resembled her.
Just another way that Daemon and Aemond are the same person because they're both want to bang their moms.
I really liked that interaction with Ulf. And
that change your mind in any way?
Oh, no, dude. Hugh the Hammer for life. But
Ulf's my guy. I'm really digging Ulf.
I do like Ulf.
Although, I mean, here's Hugh out there knocking people down the streets and taking their food, which I get it.
I did not like that.
You got a family to feed, but like you just took food from somebody else's family, which is what you and your wife were just saying that you would never do.
And also, he's us in the zombie apocalypse. Literally, we will do that.
They were porch pirating Westeros Instacart.
Here's the thing, though. It was the right choice because he knew with that many people running through the roads, he wasn't going to be able to make it all the way to the shoreline.
And he was late in the tank.
With whatever it was, there was no chance. So he's got to worry about his family. Honestly, I respect that. I know it's messed up because you just cold cocked some random guy, but I don't know that guy. I know Hugh.
All I can say for now is that Ulf would never dare do anything like that.
Ulf would do that like 10 times over. Get out of here.
Ulf is a saint.
No, Ulf would do that so much worse.
We didn't see it. We didn't see a body. So.
Ulf wouldn't have punched him. He would have kicked him in the balls.
Ulf would have been like, my dad is Daemon Targaryen, hand it over. I'm
and that would be fine. If he did hand it over, he'd be like, okay, we've come to an agreement. And you gave me stuff. I didn't cold cock you in the face.
See, I have all this excitement that like Ulf or Hugh will get to ride a dragon and like watch nobody else is going to. That was it.
I'm okay with that. I just think there's a bigger role for these characters to play.
Cover your face again. I don't like this. I don't like it.
Well, remember, Bridget, I'll say it for Sharondy, there's 2 other dragons. There's Vermithor and Silverwing. So, and then we have Ulf and Hugh.
Vermithor. Yeah.
And you said something about Vermax, too? Vermax was somebody's dragon or nobody's dragon, Sharondy?
That's a real estate company. Pretty sure.
That's Remax. But Vermax is the real estate company in Westeros.
I've heard it both ways, Dave. Heard it both ways.
Oh, boy. I love it.
Vermax is Jace's.
Jacaerys. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So Vermithor and Silverwing are still in the Dragon's Pit. Okay, so we talked about the brothel madam and how she looks a lot like Alicent, and she's kind of a hero in this episode. But Alicent does have a little bit of a moment with both Aegon and Aemond. And for all of Aemond's wanting his mother's love, and Alicent, in response to his moves this episode, she tries her hardest to not slap another one of her council in the face like Rhaenyra did. She puts her hand on Aemond's face and go, in her own way, what of temperance? This can't be a pissing contest. The people have to love you.
Have the injustices of your childhood not been avenged enough?
I think you'd be interested to know that my feelings on Alicent changed a little bit this episode.
Okay. It wasn't that moment, right? It was with Aegon?
No, actually, it's the moment with her brother. Gwaine. Okay. That can't be a real name.
Gwayne.
It was that moment because she asks, is it me that's the reason that my sons are like this? And upon further reflection on my end, because initially, knee jerk, I'm like, yeah, you're the worst. Because she's still not great. I don't love her. But
challenge the spirit of Rachel too. I mean, she's a prince. She's a queen. She had people doting on herself.
Upon further reflection, I would say it would be really hard to raise a kid at court who really still knew themselves and like who they really were, let alone add into the mix that they're royal. Come on, dude. You're just asking for a messed up kid. Everybody around them is going to be kissing their butts 100% of the time.
Well, isn't this what I say all the time about like celebrities and sports stars and stuff, that they're allowed to do what they want because they're stars and they bring in money?
They shouldn't be, but yes.
I think part of her is taking a little bit of responsibility, or she's trying to take some responsibility for her part in their rearing.
Viserys didn't take a big part. He was always pro Rhaenyra. And that is, Bridget, you didn't watch all of the first season, but they showed pretty plainly that Viserys didn't really take a hand with those kids.
Rearing those children.
Was like, it was all kind of put on Alicent to do. She didn't know what to do either. So
and she was young.
Yeah, but her mother had died, so she didn't really have any guidance or anything. And what is she going to tell Viserys? She's a child bride. What is she going to tell this old man to do? She's not entirely to blame. A lot of the blame falls on Otto and Viserys for not doing anything with those kids, too. He just totally pretty much ignored them. Even when there was a big blow up between them, which was where Aemond lost his eye, Viserys still didn't do anything about it. He was like, they're just kids, don't worry about it, no big deal. Also, I want to say that, remember, Dave, in that episode, she was mad because Luke had taken out Aemon's eye, and she was like, is there not going to be any justice or anything like that? And she slashed Rhaenyra's arm. It's the same place that she slashed her arm in this episode.
Yeah. Well, that's why I also brought up the
Artemis Kelsigar.
Right. And Alicent puts her hand on Aemon's face. Aemond gently takes it off his face and basically throws it back in hers and says, well, now you can dedicate your life to more domestic duties.
And I know for a fact he knows that his mom is banging Kristen Cole. He 100% knows.
It's very obvious.
That was what that jab was about. They're not very secretive about it. I mean, she's always looking at him.
Her brother knows too.
Do you think that ship has sailed now with between Alicent and Kristen, even though she does sort of with a nod wish him well more carefully?
I'm pretty sure as soon as he comes back, she's going to be banging him again. I mean,
been quite a few episodes. So we don't really know that they have been. Not that I care. Not that I care. I agree with you. Not that I care too much.
I'm just saying, just kind of like Rhaenyra and Massaria need to be a little more on the down low.
Yeah. I
love how
concerned.
He comes in and he's like, oh, I'm sorry. I was like, yeah, you caught him.
Why couldn't they just be friends? I have nothing against it. I just feel like it wasn't a necessary addition to this. She was her advisor, and now it's going to get all complicated.
I feel like it's going to bite her in the butt. That's my concern.
Yeah.
Or may I refer you to a thought that I had, maybe it was 2 episodes ago, and that was, now, Sharon, put the paper on your face. do you think that Rhaenyra is going to make it to the end of this episode and everybody else, Sharon D didn't do us the service of saying no, but everybody else said, yeah, I guess it's entirely possible she won't. And that's the Game of Thrones way. Robb Stark was the king of the North and he never made it. And he was utterly disgraced.
Did you say the end of this episode or did you mean the end of the season?
I mean the end of the season.
You said the end of the
season. Yeah. I was like, well, she did make it to the end of this episode. But.
Though it may look complicated, Mysaria and she having this intimate moment between them, Daemon actually does have love for Rhaenyra. It may look weird, and he may have some resentment towards her because of the thing that he was promised. Jace loves her very much. He does. As much as he gives her S, they do find kinship in these moments sometimes when they're strategizing. And he does
rolling my eyes that he was promised. He wasn't promised anything. So
no, well, I mean, he felt like he was wronged or whatever it was. Listen, we know better. But either way, there is love there. Everybody, even Alicent, loves Rhaenyra. So if Rhaenyra was to not make the end of the season, these people will fight hard for her honor and her name, despite that loss. They will not give up.
I would be inclined to think that that's not going to happen, but that instead, in terms of this storyline with Mysaria, much like everyone else has shunned Mysaria, because that's a repeated theme in her story. But I think what'll have to happen is Rhaenyra will have to let that fall to the wayside, either because, much like reflecting on how Daenerys's story went, is her advisor going to make a unexpected suggestion that doesn't go well or something to that effect? Or Daemon comes back and she's got to be with Daemon if they're like on the same team. He comes back and he's like, I'm sorry. She's got to go back to that. And they've had such a bond over this, like, Daemon only does what Daemon wants to do. And that's all he does. And he leaves everyone else in the lurch. And then she'll leave her to do that. And so I feel like that might be kind of where this story is going.
That's what I was thinking initially too. But going back to the Rhaenyra thing, if she doesn't make it the season, and Mysaria was with Daemon, at least in appearances, this is where, I don't know if he was still with her when Viserys passed. No, I don't think no, they split up way before then, way before the time jump.
That's when Rhaenyra was young Rhaenyra.
Yeah, exactly. I could see them working together. I mean, I don't think she'll trust him very much, but she could wrangle him. I don't know.
Well, if Rhaenyra were to die, then Jace is the heir.
Right, the next heir.
And I think it would be interesting to see who would jockey for position to be behind him. And he wouldn't have a super strong claim to the throne in the eyes of Daemon. Daemon would be like, nah, dog, it's all me.
He's already trying to claim kingship as it is. So he would be the first one to jump in place.
And Sir Alfred has not made it to Harrenhal yet.
Jace is not the only son that's left. There's Jace, Joffrey, Aegon II, and Viserys.
Right. We saw both of those kids in the Vale playing with the little dragons as Rhaena was like, there's a big dragon in the Vale. I wonder if I could take it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's our last shot. If you're really that set on it, might as well try. You could either ride a dragon or you could be dead.
Seems like that's what everybody says.
I don't know about you, but I'd go ride a dragon, in my opinion.
Ride or die.
In the episode where Aemond loses his eye and there's the big blow up, because it's after he takes Vhagar.
Mm-hmm.
He takes Vhagar, and when he comes back, Jace and Luke are standing up for Baela. Vhagar was supposed to be Baela's after her mother died, not Baela, Rhaena. They were trying to stand up for the girls, and they got into a big fight with Aemond, and Luke stabbed him in the eye.
I did see part of that. Did they flash back to that in that last episode?
They must have done that.
After the big blow up and everything, Aemond tells his mom, I may have lost an eye, but I gained a dragon. So he understood that there was a sacrifice.
It's sad that Helena, after seeing the people fawn over her when her son dies,
how quickly they turn.
And it's almost as if, like, I forgive you. They're not all that cracked up to be, because she probably already saw that in her brain. And she was just kind of like, oh, no, I don't like this. When they were actually fawning over her and, mourning her loss, she was just like, no, I don't like it. I'm very unsettled by it. She's seeing actually the sept.
Oh, if those two soldiers hadn't stepped in when they got covered up by the crowd, they would have been torn to pieces. No doubt in my mind.
I thought it was crazy that Alicent's like, sheathe your swords, because that old man came out of nowhere They just cut off his hand, which is
that
really
was wild.
That's
and
really
that's the
what
only
set
reason
off
why
the
it went
whole
crazy
thing in the first place.
Exactly.
But then she says, "Sheathe your swords," and then the guy is like, "What's wrong with you?" Swords. That's what, and they're all just getting pummeled to death. And I was like, "You did that just then by saying that."
A little late in the day, baby.
Yeah, it doesn't. They're not gonna look back on it and be like, "She told them to sheathe their swords so they didn't kill us. We're so thankful." They're not.
It reminded me of the Game of Thrones when they got attacked, Joffrey and Sansa, and the men had a hold of Sansa and were getting ready to spoil her. In. That is exactly what would have happened to Alicent and
Helena. Oof. Yeah.
Which, again, it's the women and the innocent who suffer, because while Alicent may have been one of the people doing machinations behind the scene, ultimately she did that to protect her children. That is her whole thing. And if Rhaenyra's on the throne, they're a threat. Even if they don't try to be king, they're still a threat just because they exist.
As a challenge to the throne.
Generally, she's innocent. Yes, she did collude and all that, but I don't feel like she had much of a choice. It wasn't because she wanted power. She wanted to protect her kids. So she went along with it.
In a weird way, Rhaenyra says out loud to Mysaria the thing I'd been saying about Alicent. Yes, it does go to what Daemon finally hears about what the realities of the crown are. But Rhaenyra says, yeah, it's a burden. I admired Daemon because he got to live carefree, go after his ambitions, as long as it didn't hurt anybody and brought too much shame to Viserys, it was fine.
That wasn't just because she was going to be queen. That's also because she was a woman. Because even Viserys and Daemon were talking at one point about how they used to go up and down the street of Silk and bang every woman they could. So as long as you were a man, you could do whatever you wanted to. It was because she was a woman, not because she was going to be queen.
But it didn't change her feelings about it. And she says, actually, I wished I could be a man. So let's tie that to Alicent. It's what I'd been saying all along. I mean, it's one person being jealous over another. Daemon and Alicent were both jealous of Rhaenyra for different reasons. One, because she had her father's love. Another, because she got everything for all the things that she felt like she had to do for Viserys, or the burden of being chosen heir to the throne. She got a lot of privileges from that. And there was like privilege envy. But I wonder if Alicent understands that this is a burden.
Alicent is jealous, thinking that Rhaenyra had all this freedom, and Rhaenyra's like, but I didn't really. She's like, I had the freedom to bang Sir Harwin Strong instead of my husband, and everybody went along with that. I couldn't live with him as husband and wife or publicly acknowledge that I loved this person. She still had to live with constraints. She couldn't just get on her dragon and go fly whenever she wanted to.
We never, as women, get really what we want, while these men could at least blow off a little steam.
They're building a nice parallel between Alicent and Kristen and Rhaenyra and Mysaria. Each one of them is getting something, but I feel like there's a difference in the dynamics between Kristen and Alicent. There's this like angry sex, right? Like it's an angry relationship. I don't think that they are in any way fond of each other or anything. I guess it would be like they're like Maggie and Negan. We got like a hate bang going on, like it's an anger bang. But I feel like with Mysaria and Rhaenyra, there's actually some respect and at least a little bit of affection there. You know, maybe not love
Harwin
per
got
se,
that too.
Right.
Like you said.
I wanted to point out the fact, and probably this is, I don't know, maybe we talked about it already, but it just became really, really obvious in this episode that, you know, I was talking about how like the Greens don't respect the Smallfolk or even engage or listen to them at all. And the only person that did was surprisingly Aegon, but then then he wasn't even capable of following through on what he promised them. And that, a lot of that's out of his hands because like there's other stuff going on now, obviously. But Rhaenyra is so much like Daenerys because of the like Mysaria, Missandei connection. They don't only value the input of the Smallfolk, they turn to them to be their advisors. And their goal is to free the oppressed. Right now it's her goal because it gets her what she wants, but still that's better than most other rulers.
But it's always been her understanding that being the ruler means you protect the realm.
Song of Ice and Fire.
Right. Well, that's what she's always been taught from Viserys.
That's what her father did.
Being a king means you're protect the realm. It's not just about being the queen. It's not about having the power. It's about using that power to do good.
So how interesting that Daenerys ended up with that, although she didn't have that connection to her father. She's taken away as a baby, grows up in hiding, only has her crappy brother with her. How interesting that she still ended up on that same side of it.
Yeah, unfortunately, also named Viserys.
I was gonna say what a contrast in Viserys is.
Yeah,
Viserys.
Yeah. Viserys is, but it was even said in this episode by Ulf, if I'm not mistaken. He says something to the effect of, when the small folk starved, they did not have banquets, they did not live in excess. He tried to feel what they felt. It's impossible. Of course it's impossible, but their house, their keep would take less.
It wasn't to that degree. It was just he wouldn't have allowed this to happen. He ruled in a time of peace. There was none of this going on. So there's no way to say
some of this,
one way or the other how he would have handled a situation like this. But hindsight is 2020. We think fondly of the dead.
Glasses.
You know,
yeah, you know what? Charity did mention this in the other episode. It's possible that we see things differently from a distance, like the 1920s. I'm not saying he wasn't
a good ruler, but it seemed like, based on everyone's account of him, he was just fair.
He's all right.
He was fair to his people. He was a fair ruler, but there was nothing else to him because you didn't see him in times of turmoil.
Or great stress, right? A great threat to the kingdom.
I mean, you know, he's got his personal turmoil, but you don't see, you know, it's not the whole kingdom is at stake.
Right. Yeah, you could have a little turmoil on the side, but not at the expense of the small folk. They never suffered because of it, which, you do see that in spades throughout these episodes.
When they paraded those sheep through, I was like, dude, bad move.
And who warned us of that? The brothel madam said.
Well, I thought maybe she was lying about it. So when they did roll those sheep on through, I was like, oh, you're busted now.
The royals sneeze and the rest of the kingdom catches a cold, basically.
Well, and I love how they're like, you're feeding your dragon. And I was
screaming in the streets.
True. Probably true.
Well, I guess this is the end of this Feelings Over Facts live stream. It pains me to do so because we only had some troll in the chat expound on their beliefs rather than you. So if these live streams catch your fancies and you've been watching these episodes live, stay up a little longer, hang out with us, tell us what you thought, tell us why we're wrong, but tell us while we're live. Take the moment to head on over to youtube.com/squawkingdead and subscribe to our YouTube channel, enable all notifications, know that we will be going live after every one of these episodes. We only have 2 more to go after this one, and I think you're going to want to show up for the season finale of House of the Dragon 2nd season. And I know this will show up in the full audio podcast containing both this and the full episode breakdown, which we lovingly and painstakingly make available for you. Guess what? It mostly comes in at about an hour and a half with our feelings plus the breakdown for your amusement and engagement and your convenience. So with that, everybody, I've been your host, David Cameo, and I was joined by Sharon D, aka Blazy Gardner, and Bridget, ko-fi.com/punkybrewster. That's PUNKYBRUISETER. We will see you in the full episode breakdown. And if you want to join us for that breakdown, head on over to either ko-fi.com/squawkingdead or patreon.com/squawkingdead, because it's the only place you'll be able to get our recording schedules. Follow us for free on either platform, Ko-fi or Patreon, and you'll be able to join these recording sessions for free. We do not hide these recording sessions behind a paywall. Thank you for watching. If you've been here, I know you're there on Twitter. I see you watching on Twitter. I feel you wanting to join us. I know that you have it popped open in a window, in a separate window, while you're interneting and watching all the other takes.
Dude, people are on their phones. What are you talking about, Dave?
That's why I said that you can put it in a picture-in-picture and continue twittering.
Nobody's doing that.
That's what they're doing. I see them. I have a window where I'm watching every single one of you not participate in these lives.
That's really weird, Dave. That's a weird thing to watch.
I'm a very versatile human being, also very hidden talents. We'll see. We'll see you. I will see you in the next one. I'm watching.
I guess I should leave a disclaimer here. I really am not watching you. It's just a funny little thing I like to do to torture Bridget. In any case, that was our post-watch reaction live stream, edited down for your enjoyment. And on to the full episode breakdown, our facts over feelings discussion.
I'm your host, David Cameo, and I'm joined by Sharon D, aka Blazy Gardner, and Bridget, ko-fi.com/punkybrewster. I'm saying this ahead of time, so when she pops on, I don't have to say it again. And we're here to talk about the 6th episode of House of the Dragon 2nd season, titled Smallfolk. The joke will never go away. But it's interesting because you'd said this one was Dragon Seeds again. And I thought that was really funny. And we're talking about seeds of a different color. We're talking about the Smallfolk, the big role that they have in this story so far. Well, let's talk about first impressions first, because I feel like in some ways we got another slow one, I think. At first, it was pretty steady. In the episode or insider, what they had said was the way they filmed this episode was sweeping camera shots that kind of would go around each character as the scene would cut in, which was meant to show that all these characters' worlds are starting to boil over or turn, or this is the inflection point. This is where things change dramatically. And I feel like that's kind of true in a way. Steps are being taken on both sides to accelerate the conflict. You see that a little bit with Aemond telling Kriston and Gwaine to meet Jason from opposite sides of Harrenhal to cover that end of things. Right. And then you've got the bubbling over of the Smallfolk in King's Landing and that whole project, which is meant to mirror two specific things that two specific regents had asked for. Basically, Aemond throwing the ground army to the fire, essentially. If Daemon wakes up with Caraxes, and Rhaenyra also kind of applying pressure to King's Landing to make it hard for them to actually send ravens and make moves. And if they're focused on King's Landing, they're not focused on the war. It's interesting that they're employing the same strategies.
Anyone who has played a game like Civilization or Age of Empires should know that you have to keep your small folk happy. That's where bread and circuses comes in. Yeah. Like Massaria said, it's hard to focus on fighting a war abroad when your own people are trying to tear down the castle. If you remember American history, one of the things mobs would do is break into houses and pull out judges and tar and feather them.
I did not remember that.
Yes, usually over taxes. But again, it's because they were squeezing the people to the point that they couldn't survive. And that's what's happening here. And the propaganda machine is doing a wonderful job of feeding those hunger flames.
Exactly. In the episode or insider also, they particularly mentioned that Larys wouldn't have even brought up the fact that the Smallfolk were starving. It's his way of trying to ingratiate himself to Aemond. People are starving. You need a good hand to guide you through these troubled times. If not for his ambition, Aemond wouldn't have even known that King's Landing was starving.
Even when they say, my Lord Regent, the Smallfolk are hungry, and he's like, and so?
This is the first I'm hearing of it.
He didn't care even when he heard. He was like, yeah, I don't care. Big deal.
Exactly.
That's their problem. Although they do seem to have an abundance of fish, enough that they can throw it at Alicent out on the square.
Yeah. And all saying, all we got is fish.
Super tired of eating fish every day too. So just saying. No vegetables or anything. It's basically just fish and water.
I don't really know where mercury poisoning comes from, but maybe there's less of it in those times. Because I think most of it's from industrial waste and people waste and all that stuff. I don't know. Was it in Game of Thrones, the green fire, the
wildfire?
It was just feces. Just feces flare. But we figured it out. It wasn't some weird green liquid. If you don't know what we're talking about, there's some cool scenes in Game of Thrones. Or watch it after this.
Go do so when the season is over. Look, here's the deal. You don't have to watch Game of Thrones to enjoy this show, but it really does add to your enjoyment.
It does, though. It really does. Yeah. It is kind of like Titanic in a way, because you know sort of how the story ends. You just want to see how it goes down, because by all accounts, are the accounts even real? It seems like at every single turn, expectations get subverted. Well, when you compare to the books, and even when you compare it to Game of Thrones, because you're meant to know some things about the series that may or may not even be true with how this is going.
Again, the books are very vague. It's like a history. Like, you don't find out about the small folks' lives and even the personal lives of the people and the main people in the stories, because it's all histories and it's very vaguely written. So even when they do change it, like, I'm almost to the point where I'm like, I'm not even paying attention to where they change it anymore, because they can do anything with it. They can even not change it and still change it, if you know what I mean. Rhaenyra is an example of that. They didn't change the story, but they changed it.
Well, and we still don't know what his fate was, but we can assume that since Seasmoke is seeking out a dragon rider.
Rhaenyra in this episode said, when they were talking about Seasmoke, he must be missing his bond. So my guess is, since Rhaenyra's been gone so long, because Rhaenyra's been gone years now, Seasmoke is just like, he's not coming back, and now he just wants to find a new writer. There's holes in the dragon lore too. The rest of it we have to fill in ourselves. So this is not out of character for a dragon, I suppose, because we don't know that much about him, even in the books. The Targaryens do, but even the Targaryens don't know everything.
Yeah, it seems like, because Rhaenyra was actually going on faith and assumptions that it was the Targaryen blood that was essential for the bond. Now, they know that Rhaena, through her trials of trying to get a dragon or one of these dragons to ride, had failed. It's kind of interesting that fate was twisted in such a way that maybe, we don't know this is going to be the case, but maybe the dragons knew something and that she wasn't fated for these dragons. She was fated for perhaps what we said in the reaction video was Sheep Stealer, or whoever the wild and formidable dragon there is at the Vale, which I find interesting. I feel like maybe the dragons have, kind of like what Alice Rivers says. She says this to Daemon, how the gods or whatever, or the forces of the forest or whatever that is, they have a role for you in a way. She says this in a way that is saying, it's like, be careful what you wish for. You want to be chosen for something? Well, here. It's kind of an irony. You were passed over as king, let's say, or for something greater that you kept trying to pursue, but now you're chosen by the gods themselves or whatever, the spirits of the forest or whatever. So what? You're going to refuse that role? And so when you take that to Rhaena, it's like, well, okay, so you were passed up from getting a dragon, but now you may have something greater.
And I like that she even was saying some of us are meant for smaller deeds. We must all support.
She says this like to assuage herself.
To Joffrey, right. Okay, so I'm having just said about not saying in the books, I am going to say something about the books. Rhaena does get her own dragon who is hatched. It's one of the eggs that she took with her to the Vale, the pink dragon named Morning. But I'm feeling like they're not going to be able to do that. There's also another character called Nettles, who is just some random baseborn girl who is able to tame one of the wild dragons.
Oh.
And I'm pretty sure that they are not going to include her.
It would be so Game of Thrones if they did, though.
I think they're melding her and Rhaena's stories together, because I'm pretty sure Sheep Stealers that she tames.
Everything seems so on the nose with that.
There's like this whole side story where she has an affair with Daemon or something. That was really weird. I'm thinking they'll probably just leave her out and put Rhaena in her spot.
Without the having sexy time with her father.
Well, it means she is a Targaryen, so
it'd be on brand.
She's Daemon's daughter, and
the daughter of Laena and Daemon,
right?
And Jace is the daughter of Strong and Rhaenyra. But now that Daemon and Rhaenyra together
is
technically her cousin. If Daemon is Rhaenyra's uncle,
so it's her cousin's stepmom.
Yep. Cousin stepmom, once removed.
If Rhaenyra is her cousin's stepmom, then what does that make Jace?
So Daemon is technically Jace's second cousin. Okay, let's simplify this equation. Because they're married, they're step brother and sister. But it really simplifies so much, even though behind all of that, there is just a weird...
You know that meme with Charlie Day where he's got all the strings and stuff? Yeah, that's what it's like figuring out the Targaryen family history.
So we talked about a lot of things just now. Rhaena and her dragon, and fate having a different plan for certain characters now. And it's kind of odd how the showrunners say that at this moment, the cameras are swirling around each of these characters because the world is turning, things are bubbling over. So along with that, it seems like a lot of these characters are meeting their intended fate. Meaning they set out to do one thing, but they got another thing. Now, I'm not saying that's Rhaenyra right now. Maybe because she is in the arms of Mysaria all of a sudden. Which is just interesting.
I'm not angry about this. I don't have a problem with it, but this is just so out of nowhere. So it makes me wonder, is Mysaria playing a game with Rhaenyra in the same way that Alice is playing with Daemon?
So I was thinking that as well. I don't know about a game, because I feel like in their own way, just like Mysaria is the avatar for the Smallfolk, and Alice is kind of like the avatar for things of mystery, or more specifically, spirits of the forest or the children of the forest.
Nature in general.
It is kind of interesting to see that they're both reaching into forces that, if not careful, it could bite them in the butt. And then also pairing that with, like you said, just like he's doing this, she's doing that. Two halves of a whole. Rhaenyra said, I said this in the reaction video, it's very interesting to see her finally admit out loud that she's always wanted to be free / a man, and being able to do what they wanted. Something that I mentioned from the top, which you remind me of constantly, that women do not have that level of agency. But she's claiming it. She's trying. Slaps Artemis in the face, because he would have never said that to a man.
Daemon would have just cut his head off.
forget even the Daemon part. It's the idea that one with, let's say, stature and honor, such as Lord Bartimus, which he has, because, and I'll say this, she ends up doing what he had asked. Hey, Bridget, if you would have done like I told and sent Lord Mooten to Rook's Rest to take it over, she mentions this to Mysaria as an aside when Jace comes in. Sorry, or the other way around. Jace, she's with Jace and she's like expressing her frustrations. And she said, and I can't go out anywhere. And then I ended up sending Lord Mooten to Rook's Rest. And it's like, oh, okay. So she's listening to him, but after she slapped him.
Well, I think the slap came out of read the room, my dude. She just essentially sent a man to his death, even though he volunteered to go. She's already feeling guilty about that and having issues. She does not need you jabbering in her ear without pause.
And also Monday morning quarterback much,
the fact that she keeps turning around looking at him like, you really need to shut up, my man. So I think that was just frustration more than, not that she didn't want to listen to him, it's just shut up.
What is this, Ryan? No, I'm kidding. This is Homelander. The boys. I'm so traumatized. No, but what I'm saying is that I say this only to illustrate that she's not stupid. I was worried in the last episode because I'm traumatized by Daenerys. Every now and again, she's let the dragon loose. She let the blood and fire loose a little bit too much. And also the tragedy of women of House Targaryen having their moment and not dealing with that power well or the state of the world well.
Here's something that you have to remember, which is hard to remember given that this has been stretched out over a few years because of filming and everything. Since the death of Viserys, the story itself has only been like 2.5, 3 months. So in this stretch of time, she's lost her dad, her baby, she had a miscarriage, she lost her son, she lost her only advisor who was worth a crap that could understand where she was coming from, and now she's lost her husband for all intents and purposes, and now she's lost her Queensguard. Not to mention little baby Jaehaerys, who is her nephew. She didn't have anything against baby Jaehaerys because Aegon is her half-brother.
I'll take your word for it.
Aegon's kids would be her niece and nephew. Not to mention that her best friend hates her, Alicent.
Well,
right?
Do you think that's true?
I don't think Alicent hates her, but Rhaenyra sees it that way. From Rhaenyra's point of view, Alicent hates her. And I also think that is why she ends up with Mysaria at the end. She's tired of Daemon. I don't think there's any love or romance between them anymore. That is completely over. So she was alone and lonely and vulnerable, and there was somebody there who understood her. I think it's a very bad move to entangle yourself in that manner, which I think Bridget said Sunday night. Knowing what you know about her, she is a master of whisperers, and you're just giving her secrets. I don't think I can win this war. Don't be telling that to everybody, man. Yes, you feel like you can trust Mysaria, but that doesn't mean you can trust Mysaria. And I'm not saying it out of any knowledge I have or anything. Like, this is just show action for me. I hope she can, but I get the feeling that Mysaria is playing her.
Let's be perfectly honest, though. I think you're saying that because Game of Thrones has a way of traumatizing you to the point where you can no longer be okay with a good thing happening, assuming that this could be a good thing for Rhaenyra and Mysaria. No, be prepared to be disappointed, like you said about Sir Ramsay Bolton.
If you think this has a happy ending, you haven't been paying attention.
Right, which is basically what you're saying.
I'm kind of basing it on the look that Mysaria had when the Kingsguard came in and was like, we found somebody riding sea smoke, and Rhaenyra kind of turned around to leave.
Well, let me add a little bit more to your suspicions, because we had mentioned that one line that Mysaria had said when she caught Rhaenyra with the sword and she's about to go to the small council, and she says, that sword suits you. And Rhaenyra promptly puts the sword down. One, that made me a little suspicious because it reminds me a little bit about what we discovered about Sage, whether it's true or not. I'm talking about the boys. Sage mentions that she was trying to find her grandmother's cancer cure. She finds it. She tells the doctors, they go, there, little girl. We tried all we could. Your grandmother's dead. And then from then on, she says, put your one hand in the man's pocket and the other to slit their throat. Now, I say this because when you look at Mysaria and she says the sword suits you, that sent a little bit of an alarm bell with me. And given what she says at the end about her oath about never trusting a man again, I think it was, pair that with the look of the sword that she seems to admire. Do you think that maybe Mysaria might turn on Rhaenyra for not fulfilling her own vengeful ambitions towards men? That would be the thing, I think.
So here's something. We don't know how they knew she was on the ship in the first place. Remember, in the first episode, they showed them boarding the ship and finding her as a stowaway. What if she was sent by the Greens? Now, I'm not saying she is. This is a total guess. I'm just
going... Bridget, her mind's blown.
I'm dead. That's it. Forget this. Forget the show. Shut it all down. Shut it down.
It started with Sage, and now we're at Mysaria. Wait, are they the same person? Wait, what if Madison is... Wait, we're talking about the wrong show. Anyway, sorry. Damn.
She was working for Otto.
We're taking her story at face value that the Hightowers burned her ass to the ground.
What if they promised her a castle or something? Or here, you can have this big parcel of land that we don't care about, and you can do whatever you want with it. And you'll be a landowner.
We won't kill you and your girls if you go over and do this.
That too. I kind of do hope it is true now. This is going to wreck it for me if it's not. Because it's such a good unforeseen twist. I would really like it.
And Sharondy's forcing us to reckon with the possibility too. And so that look she gives both Rhaenyra and she has on her face when she hugs her, that could be a layered look. There could be a part of her that really wishes she wasn't betraying her. That maybe the best lies are the ones you believe yourself. Do you remember on The Walking Dead, Dante, how he didn't want to betray his friend Sadiq, but at the same time he had a mission, and there's this really complicated thing where you fall in love with your captor sort of situation, or your prey. I liked that, and a lot of people didn't. I very much thought that was psycho killer vibes sort of situation, but at the same time there is a human element to it. So put that on Mysaria, and it's like, that's compelling to me. Well, folks, who is exactly like this? You have a person in conflict. They have a mission, but then they also have personal ambitions and they have personal feelings and they're in conflict. It's Daemon. Daemon is conflicted between the love of his family and his personal ambitions and the things he felt was owed to him. Maybe Mysaria has the same sort of, and it's not crazy because Daemon and Mysaria were together, whether it was a matter of convenience or whatever it was that they had together in season 1. I don't know, but it's kind of interesting to see that come back around again. We're here all over again, and we're in Dragonstone again, too. And Mysaria's with Rhaenyra, and Rhaenyra just got through saying, I wish I could be a man like my Uncle Daemon, uncle husband.
Okay, I'm going to put an arrow in my own theory, but she did help Rhaenyra with the food ships, and she has had several opportunities where she could have killed Rhaenyra.
True. Plenty of times.
But that doesn't mean she's not plotting against Rhaenyra. She could be using the Greens and Rhaenyra. The Greens sent her there. She used that as an excuse, and then she's going to do her own thing. She is like a wild card. We think she's on a side, but she could be like Varys and just not be on any side. It'd just be for the people.
The good of the realm. Okay, that's interesting. I feel like it's also very possible that she is a lot like Hightower, in a sense where the good of the realm is the paramount of their... It's what they say they're all about. Is it any wonder that, well, she blames Otto Hightower in particular for her position, quote unquote, if we're to believe her story, fine. Any wonder why Otto Hightower is gone missing, has not answered Alicent's ravens. Now that could also be because, as Grand Maester Olwen mentions, the Reach is at war. The Tyrells are basically at war with the Hightowers. So that could be the reason, but maybe it's the whole long game with Mysaria too. Maybe it's like one of those things where it's like a Sister Sage thing. You set a domino in motion and it's like a Hail Mary and you hope that it goes down the line and topples all the things. Because as much as Otto Hightower wanted Aegon on the throne, I don't think he accounted for the fact that he would be the domino to fall in that scenario. And if it's not going his way, then maybe he's enacting plan B, and that's Mysaria. And the timing couldn't have been more perfect, too, for that move to be played.
They also expected Aegon to basically be himself and go keep whoring and partying and let them run the country. And that's not what happened, and kind of threw their plans off. Speaking
of Aegon, not talking about anything specific about him, but when the Kingsguard were told to sheathe their swords by Alicent, I feel like the guys who got killed in the mob were Aegon's guys that he installed, his little buddies sitting around the throne, trying to think of names.
Oh.
Speaking of Mysaria, I just want to mention this on the side, but one of the showrunners, I think he's a showrunner, he calls what I called Mysaria the off-council hand as well. And then I wrote next to it in my notes, #girls get it done. Okay, fine, whatever. Which I thought was an interesting tidbit because we had said Rhaenys was sort of like the hand of Rhaenyra, but it felt like Mysaria was giving her the most useful advice when she came in and saved her life, essentially. It's so interesting that the scene in Dragonstone in the Small Council opens up with Corlys being the hand of the queen, right? Well, Bridget made eyes, and he was the first one there.
Okay, I'm going off on a wild hair here.
Okay, Bridget.
Think about when Mysaria came. when did Mysaria show up? She showed up right at the time that Arik and Eric were like about to battle. So what if that was orchestrated behind the scenes? Kriston Cole knew that was going to happen. What if Alicent or Otto was like, well, I know what they're doing with this dumb plan, and I'm going to send Mysaria along the way to save Rhaenyra's life so that she would trust her, because there was no other way she was going to trust her.
This was after he was sent away, so that definitely could have been Otto who did it.
Otto had to have done it way ahead of time because, travel by boat and how long it would take and all that stuff. So it must have been something that was done in parallel.
Well, because wasn't that like the second episode? The thing with Arik and Eric? I think it was early enough that Otto wasn't gone yet. Sharondy cracked the case wide open.
It's definitely possible. I'm definitely on guard now all across the board because even when somebody tells me something, if I jump in headfirst into this theory, I listen to you guys. I really absorb what you have to say. It's hard for me to think of other possibilities because I'll bring it up all the time.
That's fair. I get like hooked on it as an idea until it's inevitably wrong. And then I'm like, yeah, of course it's wrong.
Well, it's just hard to take yourself out of the possibility that is being presented and then think of something else. Well, we do start off this episode with Jason Lannister arriving at the Golden Tooth, which is run by House Lefford. It's glorious. He makes me miss the Lannisters in a weird way because we get Tywin, he's kind of fair.
He and his brother are like polar opposites. Like his brother's kind of meek.
He's balanced in the head.
Do you remember he was the one that hit on Rhaenyra? I think it was in episode 2 of season 1. And he was like, well, of course, we're going to be married and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, yeah, no. He was a jerk then.
He's like what Bridget would do. He's like, we're getting married. We're going to have babies. Get it? I'm a man and I get what I want. Get it?
Do you get it yet? Get it?
Do you get it, audience?
Much like Kristen Cole, that's why he's also against Rhaenyra so hard, is because she spurned him. Rhaenyra, breaking those hearts and causing all those problems, man.
Yeah, it's always the women. Why? Gulp. I had learned some things about the Golden Tooth. House Lefford is kind of like with the Starks. You have the Karstarks and all the men of the North. Apparently, Lefford has fealty to House Lannister, just like a bunch of other towns in the Westerlands. They follow Casterly Rock, basically, kind of like the Tullys and how the Rivermen follow their Lord Paramount. But it's very interesting to see the tension between... What was the guy's name? Did they even mention his name? I guess I didn't write it down. Wasn't worth mentioning because Jason made him seem unimportant.
So rude. I love that they have the wherewithal to drag live lions with them in battle.
Obviously, it's their dragons.
And I cannot wait to see them let that lion loose in some battle to just destroy people.
Is this an allegory?
It's going to be awesome. It's not as awesome as dragons frying everybody, but watching a lion jump into the battle, it'd be like watching one of the dire wolves.
Do you think it'll look like how Shiva looked
on The Walking Dead?
Yes.
Well, yes, because of the CG.
Or will it look like the deer?
Oh, maybe a cross between. I don't know what their budget's looking like these days. But
we wasted all our money on this dragon.
Do we spend more money on dragons? On that cool dragon that Rhaenyra's riding to? Like, as much as we said a lot about...
Just a guy in a lion costume.
Man.
Yeah, the blue man suit. Yeah.
When Rhaenyra
like
came
on
out
The Walking
of the
Dead.
Cave on Syrax, and then Syrax put her wings back and dove like a bird. I'm like, that was so cool.
That's what I'm saying. As much as we commented on Sea Smoke.
The detail. His eyes, his pupils dilating, and oh man, that is just amazing.
I like the little shiver that Sea Smoke gave when he was about to let Sir Darkland on its back. It was like a little shiver, and then the spines had they weren't rigid. They felt like more fluid as the neck moved.
They're almost rubbery.
Bridget, again, this is what the money went to. This is just that 2-second thing.
Yeah. They have no money for anything else. So you're getting a guy in a lion costume. Sorry.
It's like Ramsay Bolton. If you think the CGI budget is going to anything else but dragons, you'll be sorely mistaken.
That's why there's not a whole lot of action in this show, because all the money's going to dragons.
Exactly.
They can't really afford it.
And you know what? We deserve it. We're here for it. It's fine. It's fine.
Okay,
we'll give it a pass.
Because intrigue is the story. The dragons are fun. And the behind the scenes stuff, that's the point of the story. This is the downfall of the Targaryens.
Well, some people watch for shipping, some people watch for death and destruction, and some people watch for dragons. Can't blame them. Everybody gets a little something out of this show, kind of like The Walking Dead.
They really have not been big on the sex stuff in this show. It's very much tamed down from Game of Thrones.
Thank goodness.
We had the BJ and the
and then to remind us.
Right. And then we had naked Aemond and whatnot.
It's funny that you said that because, and I wasn't even going to mention this at all, but when I watch on Sunday nights, before we jump on and do our reaction live stream, which you should attend if you head over to youtube.com/SquawkingDead, I watch in the living room. And sometimes Evelyn is there and she sat down, not for this episode, but I think the one beforehand, and watched with me for a little while. And then it occurred to me the reason why she stopped watching Game of Thrones. And it was a lot of okay, you have to picture this. It's the end of season 1. Daenerys is getting honeymoon sexually assaulted by her husband, essentially. Mm-hmm. That's kind of where she checked out. She's like, what am I watching? This is outrageous. And so it occurred to me that, yeah, you're right. And I said, you know what, Evelyn, this show doesn't have nearly as much of the stuff that made you stop watching it. And it's a lot less complicated and all over the place. And I said this last episode, they're trying to complicate it by creating all these different settings and fronts and misallegiances around Westeros. But I said, you may want to hop on this series. It's not giving you the middle finger to all your sensibilities, like kind of like The Boys in a weird way, as Game of Thrones did. I don't know. It's a good advertisement, I think, for people who bugged out of Game of Thrones.
I think the difference with The Boys and Game of Thrones is The Boys is so over the top comic booky. Game of Thrones, that is some real sexual assault.
Well, he knows what it wants to be.
The Boys make a joke of it usually.
The Boys is far more cynical. The stakes are high, but at the same time, it's kind of like Fallout in a weird way, how Fallout's bedrock is its ridiculum. And so is The Boys. It has a story on top of it that is pretty serious, but then the bedrock is just all like, well, you're walking on farts, essentially. The Boys is walking on farts, and every now and again one is let out, and you start laughing because farts are funny. Sorry, farts are funny.
See, that made me laugh. Help yourself. I'm a grown woman, and that made me laugh.
I had to think of a good visual or auditory analogy to kind of give you the feels for The Boys. But whereas this show, the humor is a reprieve from the trauma that you're experiencing on an episode-to-episode basis.
Which Daemon, when he said, surely you can't still be angry about this. When he walked in and Viserys was on the throne, king for a day. Did you say it? Did you say it?
You're dead now.
It just made me laugh so hard.
Don't you forget about these things when you die? I'm dead. It's not my problem anymore. You're not my problem anymore. I get it. I was very affected by Daemon's dreams, though. Since we're here, we'll stop by for a little while.
For once, they made sense. Because before it was just like, no, I'm tired of this.
Let's make more sense out of this. Because now you're starting to get the picture.
And I think it works. Daemon recognized what he had done wrong. Right after he comforted Viserys, they went straight into Simon Strong telling him that Grover was dead. And I see that as a reward for his self-awareness in this situation and making it right, even if it wasn't a dream. Even Alice said, I'm just a piece on the chessboard. I'm not the player. So the spirits sent Alice to administer to Lord Grover
her talents.
Right, because Daemon did the right thing.
Renowned talents, in fact.
And let me also say this. It was 3 days. That's a long way for her to travel to the Tully house.
They're in the same general land, I think, right? I bristle at the word reward, but it occurred to me finally to give a really good analogy for what Daemon's going through. It's a Christmas carol. It's a Christmas carol. God. He's being visited by his ghosts to finally change his ways. I'm not mad at it in a way, because I'm wondering if it is the gods. I'm wondering if it's someone playing on him. Maybe Alice Rivers. Maybe we're not even meant to know. But for all we know, the reward is a word that I'm bristling at, but I do accept that, okay, we got him to feel something, to stick to a side. And so ergo, now you can reap the reward or reap whatever it is that we intended for you. Now you're on our side. We can manipulate you, let's say even. Because it's like Alice said, you are not you. You no longer belong to you. First of all, it's kind of like a vampire, right? You let him in the home. He said, counsel. And then at the end of his spiel, he said, I need help, Alice. I need help. I'm desperate. He gave up his agency finally for this. He just wants a reprieve. I feel like he's being manipulated by whatever this force is because he finally let it in on 2 fronts. He asked Alice for help, like she says, Daemon Targaryen would never do. And secondly, his dream finally affected him. So on the back end, on the Christmas Carol end, as much as you guys have criticized these dreams, and rightly so, can you go somewhere? It's been, 5 episodes, 4 episodes, whatever it is. Can we move on? And maybe we will as a result of this. I still kind of found the dreams compelling. And I think we can all agree to this. I can never 100% figure out Daemon at all. His world, as Rhaenyra says, he's never found peace. He's always been in conflict. Always. I felt the spirit of Rachel move within me. I can never figure out if he was a good guy or a bad guy.
But it's always been conflict of his own creation, in his own mind.
Absolutely.
Because he had this conflict with himself when his brother was handed the throne, who, by the way, was also not the one with the best claim. He was the one that the council decided. So Daemon feeling like he's entitled to the crown is even doubly wrong because you were never supposed to be in the running anyway.
You were never considered.
But he had this chip on his shoulder the entire time about how his brother didn't trust him and blah, 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 blah. But then he created that situation by being Daemon. It was self-fulfilling prophecy type thing.
Right. And maybe this is the way it was always meant to end up, because as we said with Rhaena, she was never meant to get a dragon until maybe now. Rhaenyra was never meant to actually claim her throne because something here is happening that's bigger than all of this. We don't know. Maybe this is how it had to happen because we could go to the prince that was promised. Maybe that's why this is all happening. And then it comes to this weird resolution.
We know from watching Game of Thrones that magic does exist in this world, whether it be through the gods or sorcerers.
Or the Lord of Light.
Well, I said that gods, whatever. But
shadow monster.
It could be something magical pushing the pieces around on the board.
But you know what's so funny? It's a lot like at the end of Fallout, the ghoul / Cooper Howard is looking out to the vastness of the wasteland, and Lucy's behind him. He goes, "It looks like chaos on the wasteland, but there's always somebody behind the wheel." That's what I want to know. Who's behind the wheel? They're never going to let us know.
It depends on your belief system.
Ah.
Personally, there could be something, but I don't know what it is. Maybe that's the same kind of thing going on in Westeros. All of these religions, we've seen them do things. We've seen them bring people back to life, hatch dragons out of a fire. But the one that we have not seen is the Seven. We haven't seen them do any magic.
Oh, and that's the only religion that was kind of made by men?
Yes. The Night King was created by Children of the Forest.
Because of the first men and them killing the Children of the Forest?
They created him to fight against the first men, to take the first men out. Man, I've been watching a bunch of lore. Here's something I found out really interesting. Brynden Rivers, who is the Three-Eyed Raven, he is a bastard descended from Daemon's line.
Oh.
Whoa. Okay.
Okay.
Not going to tell you how. Just telling you.
Wow.
I mean,
okay.
Charity just said, "Do you get it? Do you get it? Do you get it?" Dude, come on. Alice Rivers, Daemon.
Well, Rivers is just the name for a bastard.
It's just a bastard name.
Yeah. It's like snow.
It could be on the nose.
I'm not saying anything yes or no. If we don't find out by the end of the show, I'll tell you.
Again, I will say this. This is yet another reason to love the River Lords, the River Folk, because they're a lot like the Starks. I feel like the Starks have more of a connection to the wildlings than the spirits of the forest.
But there's a different surname in every area.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because Westeros has one as well.
You mean King's Landing?
Yes.
The north is snow. The Vale in that area is stone. In Dorne, it's sands.
Well, we got the hulls in Driftmark.
Oh, right. That's Driftmark.
I got it. Crown Lands is waters. Iron Islands is pike. The Reach is flowers.
Because of the Tyrells.
The Stormlands is storm. And then the Westerlands are hill.
Which is where the Lannisters are from. This actually makes me want to go to Gwaine and Alicent, actually, because Alicent is giving Gwaine her blessing. Simultaneously, she's asking him about her father. But he only writes to you, Alicent. You're the favorite. Everybody knows that. It probably never even occurred to her. Let's start there. Do you think that's what she got from her conversation, at least the beginning part with her brother? That she probably didn't think she was his favorite for all the ordering her around to do stuff and get in with Viserys and do the things for me. Do it for the good of the realm, for the good of our family. Do all the things. Do them. And Gwaine says, we never really had a choice. Did you get that out of that conversation, at least from the first part?
Not really.
To live in the world where women have no agency, to be the favorite, too? I thought that was interesting.
I think it's only the two of them, so I feel like she probably knew. For one thing, I don't think Otto ever spent a whole lot of time with Gwaine, because Gwaine was at Old Town and Otto was at King's Landing, so probably didn't know much about him.
I think Otto saw Alicent as his meal ticket. He can't marry off his son and reap the same benefits that he can when he marries off his daughter. to the king. And so he played favorites because he knew if he took her to court, he could kind of comb her to end up with someone in power. Didn't have to be the king, because I don't think that was really on the table at the time, but
it suddenly did become.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe Gwaine also has a little bit of resentment for that.
Oh, I noted that as well. There's a jealousy.
Much like Aemond, who is resentful of all the things that he didn't get. He wasn't taken to court. And he wasn't with his dad.
I think there's a jealousy there. I wouldn't equate it to resentment because he acknowledges also that none of us, you, me, we never had a choice. We had to follow father's orders.
Right. I don't mean resentment towards Alicent. Resentment towards
okay. That's what I thought you meant.
Because even he's like, I haven't written him and he hasn't sent me any messages. The reason she was asking in the first place was because she wanted to ask about Daemon. And since Gwaine went through the same thing that Daemon is going through, being warded at Old Town without his mom. She was asking him, did I do the right thing, basically? You went through the same thing, so is Daemon in a good place? And he knows Daemon because he's seen him and talked to him. She was just trying to beat around the bush and roundabout ask about Daemon. She finally had to just come out and say it.
Oh, after having to deal with Aegon this whole time in bed, suffering, and also apologizing for her role in his behavior and actions. Yeah, that's good. I like that. In a way, he says exactly what she needed to hear, at least whether it's true or not.
You did the best you could.
Whether it's true or not, right? Because it could be not true. Kind of like all while when she asks, will he ever be the same, or will he ever... something to that effect.
If he lives, what will he be?
He could not lie to her. It's like he could have made something up, but all while, I'm so sorry. I love that guy so much.
I do like him.
Because he's honest. I wouldn't say to a fault, but he cannot tell a lie.
And I love that he obviously knew Aemond was up something because he immediately came and checked on Aegon after Aemond left. And he was like, I knew you were in here trying something.
Let's go back to Alicent, though, for a hot sec, because I love all of it. But there was one thing that had occurred to me, and I thought I saw a tear fall from Gwaine's eye, but it was right. It could have just been the atmosphere, because there was stuff flying around everywhere for some reason. You know how King's Landing is a little dirty and stuff like that. But you wouldn't be faulted for thinking that, because Gwaine breathes a heavy sigh before he goes. And there is this distinct possibility based on the fact that Aemond wants Criston to march on Harrenhal, knowing there's a dragon there, knowing that we've seen what dragons can do in a land battle with men. And Aemond's treating all these people like dragon fodder. Again, Gwaine's basically saying, thanks for all the fish. He's saying, I may not see you again.
When she said, I'll pray for the gods for your safe return, and he was just like, And then he got on his horse. I was like, he knows the gods don't have anything to do with it, man. He's going to war. There's no god there. He also knows that she may have been out there to see him, but she was also out there to see Criston Cole. He sees her looking a couple times, and he's like, yeah, whatever. I know who you're out here for. I have the feeling Gwaine is not going to survive.
This pairs well with that last look. And I kind of wanted to get your read on what that meant when Alicent looks over to Criston, holds for a very interesting long while, and then finally does a small, indecipherable nod.
And then he nods back just barely.
Ever so slightly. They both do.
Here's the thing with Alicent. I don't blame her for wanting to sleep with Criston Cole. She's never had a relationship with love and passion. Viserys was fond of her. I'm sure he didn't treat her badly or anything, but there was no passion or romance. That was just procreation or having an heir or several.
Well, Otto's duties.
Right. She's exercising her agency for the first time sexually.
In the only way she can.
Who else? Larys?
There's nobody else. Is it the Greyjoys when Ironrod offered the Queen Dowager for an alliance?
She was like,
no, we're not doing this again. You're not my father.
Reminded me of Cersei when they were going to marry Cersei off to Loras.
From the Tyrells.
She was like, I'm not doing that.
Oh, that age difference too, by the way. Woo.
She's just eaten up with guilt over it and thinking that this sin is what's causing all of her problems. Which also mirrors Catelyn Stark. She had that whole speech about this is all happening because I couldn't bring myself to love a motherless child, Jon Snow. Alicent is blaming herself for everything that is not in any way her fault or bad.
Well, it's arguable, but
Aegon is. But again, I feel like she and Otto thought that Aegon would be super manageable. And then he got a taste of the power when they had him crowned, and he was like, oh man, I'm king, and just messed up their plans.
Well, and then after his son got killed, he felt like he had to do something.
Right.
I don't think anybody could have accounted for that too. And so that throws the calculus way off.
I don't think even Daemon really expected them to behead a baby.
The jury's not out on that one.
I feel bad for Alicent in terms of her sexual activity with Criston. But again, this was the medieval period where women were supposed to be virgins and pristine, blah, 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 but the men could bang whoever they wanted to. Same thing for Criston, man. He's been a virgin probably most of his life because he was a Kingsguard.
And he's worked very hard to get to where he is,
and the only person who he had done it with spurned him. I see their sides. I don't hate them for that. I hate them for completely different reasons.
Oh, right. Okay. So there's no change. Okay, I got it. Let's peel back another layer, because does Criston Cole treat Alicent poorly? I feel like the exact opposite is true. I feel like he treasures her. And maybe under weird transference conditions, at least initially, and where that goes from there, we don't know. But there's something to be said about however this whole thing got started between he and Alicent. He does play the part well, at least. He doesn't mistreat her. He may be possessive, which, I mean, let's all acknowledge one part of our relationships is that sometimes you do want to feel possessed. I want to feel possessed by my wife. I want to feel like I can possess her or own our relationship in our own way. We want to feel like we are each other's. They may not have fully claimed their possession of each other, but at least they're playing the part. At least they're treating each other right in the brief window of sexy time that they do have. I'm not saying it's real, but what I'm saying is maybe that's the best some people can hope for. And that is in its own way kind of tragic. Because here's the thing. In any other circumstance, would they have even gotten together? No effing way. In a perfect on paper world, they would have had no association with one another. The key thing that I want to focus on is in that moment where they both sort of ever so slightly nod to one another. I thought there was two things going on. I don't actually think it necessarily is about their relationship. I think it is, as a person, I want you to come back safe. But I think also as a person, I think she's relying on him to get Gwaine home safe too, given their conversation just now. He's all I have. And we're now finally fessing up that our father's kind of a jerk. And you were forced to do things like forced to be in Old Town. I was forced to do this. We didn't have agency, and I'm finally trying to claim some of mine, and you are doing the thing for the king. And what do you get for it? No agency still? Let's get to peacetime. Let's come home from this thing safely. Be brothers and sisters for real and sit across the table. And because we take these things for granted in our lives.
I'm thinking that I don't think they're particularly close. She wants to know that she has some family that's not crap
trying to murder other people.
Trying to murder everybody.
Let me add to that, because I mentioned in the last episode how all the men she thought she could trust, like Tyland even, Orwell is saying the things, but he can't always agree because he's bound to King's Landing. Criston Cole at the small council agrees that Aemond should be the Prince Regent. All the people around the table that were listening to her every word while Viserys was sick have all kind of gone away. In this episode, we're finding out her own family is kind of peeling away. Aegon is not so great right now. He's barely speaking at all.
As Aemond said, and Aegon is...
That's another one. Father is not answering the ravens, we find out. So that one's gone. If with war at the reach, he could be dead. When you get to Gwaine, that's where she's at. You're all I have. Criston, in a way, is family.
She has Helena, but even Helena is not there.
And you know what? We can just as easily point this all to Rhaenyra too. She's the first person whom she lost in all of this was Rhaenyra. And you had said in the reaction video, the cut on her arm is kind of a reminder of that when they were trying to get away from the mob.
In season 1, after Aemond and the kids had the fight and they cut out Aemond's eye, they were in council with the king, and the king was like, they're kids, get over it, there's nothing to be done. And so Alicent grabbed a knife, and if I remember, it was the cat's paw dagger she went after and slashed Rhaenyra's arm in pretty much the same place that she got cut. Yeah. I think she grabbed the dagger from Viserys because she was standing next to Viserys.
When I say all this, because that was the first one. That was her confidant, her friend, or who she thought she was a friend. It's all slipping away from Alicent, let's put it that way. And on top of all the family, Aemond just goes, your services are no longer required. So you lose family, you lose purpose. What's left? Kriston might die.
She's in the same desperation boat that Rhaenyra's in. The men around her don't listen to her. She doesn't have the same agency that Rhaenyra does to slap the crap out of somebody. She just has to take it. The closest she came to slapping was putting her hand on Aemond's face when she asked him.
And that's like such a too little, too late moment too. It's like he's been looking for this the whole time. I've mentioned this before, I think when it came to the boys about the Alexander the Great syndrome. Well, now I've bested you. I'm here. I'm the Prince Regent. I don't need your love anymore. Get your hand off of my face. Thank you. Bye.
Well, that, and I'm sure he's been dying to get rid of his mom. I don't need my mom telling me what to do on the small council.
Well, he said this to Kriston in that strategy meeting too. Is like, I can't trust them as far as I can throw them. I've all but written her off, and my grandfather. I do find it interesting that he sends Larys to find Otto Hightower.
Yep. I called that, by the way. He's going to bring Otto back.
I was amazed, but I want to know what's in his head, because on the one hand, he is a dark mirror for Aegon's leadership style. He is commanding the council with his force of will alone. As terrifying as it is, it's a little impressive. You can remark on that. But Aegon sends Otto away. He says, get out of here. He's like Trump, get out of here. And throws the hand thing at Kriston's feet. You be the hand. Okay, that sounds like a great idea. Why does Aemond ask for Otto back? Well, he says he's the only person that this family's trust, but he doesn't trust his own council?
I don't think Aemond is stupid either.
Right. I'm just trying to figure him out.
He understands that he needs someone with wisdom. Get rid of his mother and bring his grandfather back, who is a man and understands man things. When you're a young man, you don't want your mom hanging over your shoulder watching what you do. So she can go bang Criston Cole. I don't care. I think he's very well aware of what she's doing with Criston Cole.
I had said this about Daemon conquering his mother in his dreams. The showrunners themselves have said this. Aemond, in a weird way, is a shadow of Daemon. Okay, yes, it's on the nose, but still there's even more to it. There's this weird manufactured rivalry that Aemond has. He's built up his own uncle as this father figure. His own father, Viserys, was like, you're not even worth trying to go after. But Daemon as a sort of father figure, as a manufactured rival, as a mirror image of me, that's a worthy father figure to try to best, as like a Alexander the Great complex. If you can beat the man, you can be the man. And you get to choose as your rival who that man is. And he chooses Daemon. Meanwhile, if he could see Daemon right now, I don't think he would choose him as his rival.
I think Aemond needs to spend a little time in the weirwood bed at Harrenhal.
I think that's very suitable. Stuff. Well, because then he'd confront his bullying and his taking of his eye, and maybe could become a really great leader. But alas, the weirwood beds are all in Harrenhal, and who wants to go to Harrenhal? It was stinky, and it's not a good vacation destination. I don't know if I should bring this up, but the shushing of Daemon by Sir Simon.
And mirrored by Aemond shushing Aegon.
Aegon. Okay. Let's go back and forth between both these things. I love this right now. I love it so much. For all the possible suspicions we may have had on Sir Simon Strong, because he could be working for the Greens and he's making them crazy. Alice Rivers' tremendous renowned talents as whatever. But when he does the shushing thing, I felt like he actually cared about Daemon. Could be one or both things, that he knows this place makes people crazy, but also that he does actually want to see Daemon succeed in this weird way.
Oh, I felt like it was more of a pity thing.
Oh, yeah, even that was touching in a weird way.
Well, I didn't find it touching. I just thought he was like, this guy's absolutely losing it. How do I mitigate this situation so I don't get killed?
The only way
so
that
he's
I know
just
how.
like, shh.
Yes, he was a little terrified. I just saw a gentleness to it that maybe Daemon needed in his life.
If Sir Simon had reacted in a violent or tried to fight back, it would have been bad. But because he just went, shh, Daemon was totally, I don't know how to respond to this.
I think Sir Simon is just kind of that way. I think he's just soft. I don't mean it in a bad way.
No,
I just mean,
I get big time Sam Tarly vibes off of Sir Simon. He's got to be a Tarly ancestor or something, which I love.
Right. But without the intellectual curiosity component, because clearly, oh man, if you look at his sons look like, why are we even here? We're like the Three Stooges being back here, and maybe even designed that way, by the way. old school reference.
If you've been raised in a big leaky castle and possibly wet nursed by Alice Rivers, who knows what you got floating around in you.
Anyway, let's not go there. But then you go to Aegon and Aemond. And something happens here that I thought was very interesting. So aside from the fact that Aegon has to reclaim the throne because his life is in peril.
Which was the entire reason that he was put on the throne in the first place.
Because I could not get the whole Mary Queen of Scots thing out of my head. Because again, I listened to you. It's like a thing. It's a bug in my brain. All of this is accentuated by the fact that Varys visits him and makes it very clear. Because you could feel Aegon backing away. First of all, because he's in pain. And he's like, just give me the milk. Give it to me. Varys is like, look at me. You need to get strong up here because you are going to get out of this bed. And when you do, we're going to need a sharp Aegon because that's what people are going to turn to. It doesn't matter what you look like. Look at Viserys. Viserys looked like a horror show by the end of his life. But when he got up in those moments where it took all his strength to get to his throne, like, I can do it myself. We were like, yes, go king, go. That's what we're looking to from you. We're looking for heroism. We're looking for you to take that throne because if you don't, you're dust. Aemon's going to take it from you. So you need to posse up. And Larys is in tears because of this too, thinking about his own experience. There's these moments with Larys where it's like, you know how awful he is, but at the same time, he sees himself in the king. And I think he also wants to be of service too. Whether they're crocodile tears, I just want to know what you guys think.
I think that having been shunned by Aemond, he realizes that Aegon is his road if he wants to succeed. Aemond pooped on him anyway.
So did Aegon too before he went off on his own too. I just thought that was interesting. But I think unknowingly, so maybe he can give him a pass.
I think Larys is doing what he's doing for Larys.
So you don't think there's even a little bit of his own struggles?
Of course, he was putting himself into that story. Yes, people laughed at me and they disregarded me, much like women get disregarded. He gets a little more hearing because he's a man, but his clubfoot has made him like a woman. People don't listen to him. He's got a little more agency.
I feel like he's got a lot more agency, being a lord and all. Well, the whole point of that was really to illustrate the fact that people are going to underestimate you and you need to show up because you're going to surprise them.
You'll never run again is a callback to Bran. They told Bran that he would never run again, but you'll fly.
It's a direct correlation to his own life. He does not get to run. So he's giving him this advice. I have lived this life. This is how it's going to have to be for you from now on if you want to make it work.
You're going to have to take a little less of the milk of the poppy.
That's the horse he has in this race.
Right. Now. This is all you got left. And it's your life that's at stake now. And before, those stakes weren't there. This is the only road you have left. So you need to be sharp.
I meant for Larys.
Aegon and Daemon also both asked for help this episode. I need your help, Alice. And then he said help to Larys.
You're my only hope.
Larry
Juan.
Help me,
Larry Juan.
Strong Nobi.
Let's go to Helena real quick in the room when Alicent came to ask her if she wanted to go light a candle. And she said,
and the cricket stopped singing.
This one stopped singing. Isn't that strange? What do you think she's referring to?
I thought she was referring to the crickets, but I knew it was going to have some sort of deeper meaning.
That's a Rachel answer. The dough's done.
Well, no, I knew there was going to be a deeper meaning. That's the direct correlation is the crickets in front of her. But I didn't look to see how many of them were there. I
saw 2 in the same cage, but
there were like several cages. So it's like, how many were there total? Could I correlate that to main characters or members of the Green family or members of the Targaryen family? Or was there any of that I could correlate to something else to figure out what it was exactly that she was talking about?
I was just going to say one thing, which was I initially thought, this just happened after Sir Darkland passed.
That's what I was going to say.
But wait a minute, I was going to say that, but then I thought to myself, what if it's Otto Hightower? This one in our family of singers has died. Aegon's still here, Aemond's still here, Jaehaerys is long gone, and of all of them, you could say it's foreshadowing Gwaene's death. I don't think it's that at all. If it's anybody that's here but not here, it could be Otto. We're never going to see him again, and Aemond's not going to get his wish for a new hand. I don't know.
It could have been some sort of weird reference to the gods also.
Oh, if they had 7 crickets and one of them stopped singing for them.
Who are you going to be praying to? Because...
Well, and she mentions the warrior which is one of the 7 gods. So maybe it's foreshadowing that the war is not going to go quite their way.
You're going to go light the candle and pray for this thing, and then maybe the opposite is going to happen now that you've done that.
You know what? We should poll the folks that watch this episode. If you have any ideas, please leave them in the comments, or if you're here in the premiere, leave it in the chat. Or if you're listening on the audio podcast, interestingly enough, and I had not mentioned this, Spotify changed their Q&A feature to a comment section. So if you're listening to this before this episode, you can leave a comment and we'll read them and we can marvel at your genius. And post it on social media if you leave your handle. So consider. So you were thinking Darkland, Lord Darkland Sharondy, right?
Yeah. But then I feel like that's maybe a little too on the nose because they don't tend to make her visions and prophecies that easy to figure out until after the fact. So I feel like it might also be something that happens later that we don't know about. And we're going to look back and go, oh, that's what she was talking about.
Or Helena herself might pass.
A book spoiler, people. Again, this may not happen in the show. There is a point when they're being chased, which, by the way, was pretty terrifying.
I've always hated mobs.
When they get pushed up against that like rack thing on the wall and it has like spikes sticking out of it. That is pretty much a foreshadowing of the death of Helena. She finally unalives herself by jumping out of a window, and she lands on the spikes below. It was supposed to happen a while ago. That might have just been like a shout out to what she was supposed to have happen. Her character is very different in the books than it is in the show.
I do want to talk about one thing, and that was obviously there's
just one more thing.
There's 2 things, actually. There's something about Alan's rejection of the possibility of him taking the throne or getting gifts from the king, etc. He even gets to be first mate, and even he's like, do I have to? Do I have to? I did want to revisit that because I had thought of why he doesn't want to be a first mate. It doesn't make sense on so many levels. But then I realized, well, he's going to be out at sea. He's not going to be able to shave his head the way he wants to. What if people see the white hair sprouting from his scalp? That was the reason I thought of when it came to, is this an order, sir? Lord Corlys, is this an order? You want me to be your first mate?
I don't think that's what it is, Dave. I don't think that's what it is
he
at
says, I'll lose the respect of my men if I start going after the claim.
I think that it has to do more with, I don't want anything from you because you didn't want to give me anything until now. I think it's more resentment.
When you don't have anybody else and you need me, you come running to me.
Now that you say that, he does look very, well, we talked about resentment a lot in this episode. He looked very resentful. And Adam's like, why are you tripping? Just take it. But doesn't it go to the rest of this episode? Those who do not wish to take will end up receiving the burden. We talked a little bit about this in the reaction live stream. The scene in the tavern, when we're getting notes, I want you to be aware that I'm wearing headphones. And the first thing you start hearing in the bar, as it goes to the fish stew and it's very thin, you hear sex noises.
Ew. I could have done without knowing that. Thank you.
Well, you know, I feel like it had to be said, and the brothel madam's in the background and she's doing the work. When the royals sneeze, the Smallfolk get a cold. And I like that it was Ulf that said, you guys didn't believe me. I don't know if you rewatched that scene. Ulf was the one who said, Viserys loved his banquets, but when the Smallfolk were suffering, he didn't have them, which makes me change my mind about Ulf. And Ulf was the first one to say to the sheep in the street, we want meat. I guess Vhagar gets his sheep. We don't get anything. We want meat.
I think he was just yelling, we want meat. And it was actually another beggar in the background that mentioned the dragon thing.
No, it was all Ulf.
Got enough sheep for your dragons then, but none for us. Where's our meat? We want meat.
It's okay to be wrong.
Yeah, it is, Dave.
All I wanted to ask was, does that whole exchange make you change your mind about Ulf? Because you're like looking at him as sort of like, oh, he's kind of slimy and blah. I'm a huge Ulf fan.
I don't see it.
Please be the hero of the story.
He's not that good. He's not that good, Dave. He's not that funny. He's not that witty.
Well, he's not as cool as Hugh the Hammer who cold cock a dude in the street for food, huh? Is that it?
Yeah.
So Laris is right. Ugly people are overlooked.
Yeah, I've been overlooked my whole life, Dave. Oh,
so you hate others. I did want to ask one more question. Why do you think Aemond gives one of the orbs from the council table to Aegon? I was wondering what was meant by that. And he's gripping it. He's still gripping it when he's talking to Laris. He's still gripping it when he's with Alicent near the end.
Yeah, I really couldn't figure that out. I was like, Is he telling him there's a place at my table when you're ready?
For you?
Or was it, you won't be needing this anymore, so here you go.
It might as well not be here.
I don't know. It was weird. I think the orb thing in general is weird. that they use it to like check in. I don't know. It's very unusual.
It's not like it's a conch, you know.
I love that
you
they
get to speak because you're
Lord
holding this
Beesbury,
orb.
who was killed in season 1 when they slammed his head down on one of those orbs. The old man.
Right.
Yeah, you missed that, Bridget. Kristen Cole did when he was like, sit down, and he pushed him down and smashed his head into one of those things.
Oh.
Right. Beesbury was in the Reach. Isn't that why he's retaliating against the Hightowers?
House Beesbury is raising arms against us and pleading for Rhaenyra in retaliation for the death of their Lord Beesbury.
That's right. Yep. That had a ripple effect from season 1 to now, and it's taking root in possibly the cricket that may not be singing anymore, Otto Hightower.
I don't think that's the case.
I don't think so either. I will admit it's a reach, but
a reach. I see what you did.
It's a reach at the Reach.
I see what you did.
I did not realize I did it. But what did you have to say about that, though? The orb that Aegon is clutching.
Aemond took it in there and was like, in case anybody came in, he was like, oh, I'm just giving my brother a boost by giving him his orb. Here you go, brother. But meanwhile, he's pushing it down on his brother's ribs and causing as much pain as possible, which is kind of a metaphor of the pain and the burden of bearing the crown, which is mentioned several times in this show. But he's the king.
You will always be our king.
Right.
Exactly.
But meanwhile, he's like, you don't remember anything.
This is a reminder. Yeah, don't say a word.
You challenged Melees. That was foolish.
Oh, brother. Tut tut. All right. Well, folks, if you like what you've heard, head on over to ratethispodcast.com/squawkingdead and let us know whether you like this, whether you didn't like this, what we got wrong, what we missed. But remember to tell us after every single episode. It really, really does help us be better or be best. And if you leave your social media handle, we will repost this on social media anyway, but we get to tag you as a result. And if you really like what you've heard and you want to invest in what we're doing, first things first, you want to be a part of the action, head over to ko-fi.com/squawkingdead or patreon.com/squawkingdead and just follow us. Following is for free. You'll get our recording schedules as a result because we don't post them on social media so that you could join us in these recordings and add your thoughts to this mix. And if you want to take your support further, that was free, right? That doesn't take that much. Take your support further. Tip us for 30 days of access to our unedited episode recordings on Ko-fi, forever access to our Discord. And if you happened to join a membership tier for as little as $1 a month, you'll get more access to our Discord. And if you happen to join the Whispers or Survivors tier, you can get 50% off in our merch store, a free classic t-shirt from our merch store right off the bat, as well as a whole host of other perks. And if you happen to join the Survivors tier, the top tier, you can join us on camera and mic alongside us as we break down these episodes. I've been your host, David Cameo. And I was joined by Sharon D, aka Blazy Gardner, and Bridget, ko-fi.com/Punky Brewster. That's PUNKYBRUISETER.
Bye.
See you later.
I'm tired.
Thank you again for making it to the end of this episode. We really, really hope you enjoyed it and hope you've considered taking the time out to rate us on your favorite audio podcast platform, or if you're listening to this on YouTube via YouTube Music or even on our YouTube channel, consider leaving us a comment, letting us know what you thought. Remember to leave a like, obviously. Without further ado, we'd like to thank our Survivors and Whisperers tier members for graciously supporting this podcast. This is a little perk that they receive at the end of every episode, both visually and orally. Starting with the Survivors tier, we have @RealRyanGM on both Instagram and X, as well as Randy @Snick3 on Instagram. Moving on to our Whisperers tier members, we have @Judith.Morton on Instagram, Aiden Atkin, who you could find on ko-fi.com/AidenAtkin. On X, we've got @IFoundThemRickG. On Facebook, we have the following three ladies: @Lois.Martin.54, @Sandy.D.Morrison, and @Kim.Rowley, the number 1. With only 2 more episodes to go, we really hope you've been enjoying these episode breakdowns, our foray into the Game of Thrones universe, and we have so much more show left to bring to you that I hope you're enjoying before we start breaking down more shows from the Walking Dead universe. So stick around, kick back, watch along with us, and continue to remember that we are Squawking Dead.